Hello, this is a live video recreated for a user in Cinema 4D CAF called CGI Hercules, and the purpose of this video is to find the optimal pathway for the seams in order to unwrap the object. Now I'm using Unfold 3D version 9, but what I'm about to show you really applies to any UV unwrapping tool sets, and it's all about picking the optimized seams for a model so that it unwraps in a way in which gives you the best unwrap with less distortions as possible. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly look over the model here just to point out a few things that you would want to avoid just generally in 3D modeling. And the first thing I want to point out is this triangle right down through the middle here. There's absolutely no need to have this. So what I would do is I would actually have these two welded so that you've got a line going straight the way down through the middle there. So that's something that you definitely want to have a look at. Try to avoid having these triangle polygons down through the center of the geometry. They're not really good to have, and this is typical of something that ZBrush might do. There's another one right here. This means that you cannot split your model down through the middle in any way. Not so you would want to do that necessarily through the front of the face, but it's something that you don't want to have. It's a nasty place to have this, because what you've got is you've got this pole right here, and this can cause problems with smoothing, subdivisional smoothing, and indeed even displacement maps. And let's just have a quick look around the back here. Okay, so again, sometimes you can't avoid it having the poles, but just be very particular where you do have these poles. In this particular case it's not too bad, but you definitely don't want to have these triangles going through the middle in there. In fact, to try to avoid having those kind of shapes anywhere down through the vertical like this. Not a good thing to have. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a general unwrap, and then I'm going to evaluate where the distortion is. So typically I would separate the head from the body, and in my particular case I'm going to use a loop type selection. I'm going to turn on symmetry. This is one of the reasons why I got this program, because of how easy it is to use and to select seams. So what I'm just going to press the C key to cut it, and then I'm just going to select this island so it's separate from the rest of the body, and then I'm going to isolate it so we can work just off this alone. No need to have UDIMs on at the moment. It's going to show in this UV space. So the next thing is typically with any head you would start from the back. Now what you want to keep in mind is when you select your seams, you want to select them in the most appropriate place where they're unlikely to be seen during render time or animation or anything that you're doing which requires rendering, because you can get seam issues with textures. So generally you would always pick to hide your seams where possible. So in this particular instance, because you've got something a little bit different to the standard head with these ears like shapes, you'd have to kind of redirect where you would actually go and select these seams. This is because typically for a normal head you would just go simply right up across to the forehead around about there, and that would be enough, but you can't do that in this particular case. So you would have to go around and select some seams so that you're able to unwrap these ears. So I'm going to go which feels the most logical for me, and that is to select this here and then go all the way down to right here, and I'm going to select these seams right up on the inside of the ear just to get to the peak, and then I'm going to just split it up between that square polygon at the end there. Let's just zoom out a little bit. That should be enough to get us a good start for our cutting. So I'm going to just C for cut and U for unfold, and I'm going to optimize this a few times just so we can see how well we're doing. So you can clearly see that pretty much everywhere else we're doing absolutely fine, but there is some issues with here. We've got some pink showing, which indicates to us that we've got a bit of stretching going on or distortion. So what we have to do at this point is choose where the priorities are for us. Now you can clearly see on the 3D model that the face really is getting quite distorted, and this is because of how far the chin is coming out. You can see here, if it was a standard human face, then you wouldn't be getting this problem at all. So what I've got to do is choose at this point whether I'm happy to accept that level of distortion or whether I want to take it the next step further. So before I take it the next step further, I'm just going to quickly just back off here so that you can see a bit more clearly what I've done up to this point. So I've gone straight around the neck area to cut the head off, and I've gone straight from the back all the way through the middle up to the forehead. I've also gone straight across underneath all the way up the side towards the ears so that I can split the ear apart, and for the most part it seems to have done a good job. And again, if we go back to here, you can clearly see that we haven't got any issues in here at all, so we're good to go. The issues are in the face area. So to take it the next step further, what we could do is we could separate part of this off by picking a new level to loop around. So I'm going to, as an example here, I want to pick an area that is I'm going to better hide. So let's just go along with this for the moment here. I'm going to cut this off so it's a separate part, just to give you another option here. So that's just get underneath, go around. That's going to cut that off now, and it's going to allow me then to select a couple of seams just under the chin. Just zoom in on selection to allow a bit of relaxing. I'm going to cut that and unfold, and then instantly you'll see that we've got a much better relaxed UV. Now of course I've had to split this up into two parts in order to get this, so you would have to decide whether it's important for you to get those distortions out to that level. You could also help it by going a little bit further down the forehead, but you've got to bear in mind that this is becoming more visible now as a seam should you get any seam issues. But I'm going to cut it anyway just to show you the effect that it's going to have on the mesh. So I'm going to cut it and unfold, and it's going to give it that little bit more relaxing going on. Now you notice that I didn't go too far up the chin. This is because, relatively speaking, when you're looking at this character, it's pretty well hidden. So in my particular case, I would just stick possibly with just that and see how we done with that. Let's just clear that. I don't think we've done too bad considering. Now when I'm doing my 3D modeling, I'm planning out my UVs as I'm doing my modeling, and generally you'll find that once you get into a flow of creating a clean mesh, you won't have as many issues when it comes to UVing, because you've got some nice clean areas and loops that you can pick. So I've split it up into two parts in this particular case just to get it relaxed that little bit more. I don't want to create any more seams than necessary, and if I could get away with it, I would have this as one whole piece. That's what I like to do normally. I like to keep it as one whole piece, but at the end of the day, if you want to have less distortions, then you know you've got to do what you've got to do. But it does depend a lot on the texture map as well. If it's going to be a pretty solid color all over, and it's just going to be some defining points that's going to have some color differences, then you might be able to get away with splitting it as I've done already. So in this particular case, I could just weld that back and have it as I did before. So I've unfolded it back to where it was before. I'm prepared to put up with that level of distortion, but I've just given you another option there if you want to just get rid of that, and it certainly would help if I maybe just added that little extra cut there. It gives it a little bit of extra relaxation there. That's fine. Now I'm just going to show all, bring everything back, and then we will work on the body as I'm already there. So that's just bring everything back. I'm going to select the head. In fact, no, I'll just select the body and isolate that, and we can work on the body. This is the first time I've looked at the body, but if obviously I was working on my own model, I'll be very familiar with the edge loops and everything that's there, but I'm not with yours, so bear with me. I'm going to try to pick the best path for this so I can keep it as one whole piece. So generally speaking, I'm looking to do the same thing where I can unwrap it using seams where I'm not going to see them. I'm picking to go on the inside of the arm. Let's keep this clean as possible. Go on the inside of the arm. Kind of hard to define where the edge of your arm is because the hand's not pronated, but I'm going to just go with what I can see here. It's pretty easy to find a route. Let's just go around to here. I'm going to go around far enough that it can relax it, so that should be fine. I'm now going to go down through the back and try and find my center line down through here. Go all the way down, and I'm going to go to the back of the ankle and down here to allow it to relax, and then I'm going to go all around the inside here. If you had toes, it would go in between the toes as well. I'm going to go just partially around there. Now I'm going to cut, unfold and pack and relax. And this is kind of what you're going to get. And that is not touching. It's got a special feature inside this program which basically automatically stops the seams from touching each other. You can see there, it doesn't matter how close we go, and we've got a pretty nice unwrap there. And of course we can optimize this a few more times. It seems to have done quite a nice job. Finally, I'm just going to rotate this around with my symmetry off, and we should be good. Just get that rotated around, scaled down. Just going to show all. There's my head. In fact, that's just quickly pack it. I only want that one. Just do this relatively quickly so you can see the results. Okay, this is a relatively quick unwrap. Okay, so there you go, the model's unwrapped now. I would go in there myself and do a little bit of tweaking, to be quite honest with you. I would definitely pull these apart, maybe place some points down and just pull them apart, but I'm not going to bother with that. But you get to see what I've done here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to this here again, just to explain my fault reasoning behind why I put the seams here. So when you look from the front, you see that I've picked the seams down the inside of the arm. They're generally hidden out the way. The seams on the inside of the leg, they're generally hid out the way. I've gone to go around the bottom of the feet, or sometimes the midway. If there's toes, I will go midway between the toes. And I've gone out far enough that I've got to relax down here. It allows this part of the foot to unwrap. The only reason I know this works well is because I've been using this kind of seam selection for some years now, and it seems to work very well for me, excuse the pun. Obviously this one here, I wouldn't want to have that selected there and there. Just weld that back. So there you go. So we've got a pretty decent unwrap there. So hopefully you can see from what I've done here the reasoning why I've done it, and you have the choice to always choose a loop or an area where you're hiding the seams should you have any seam issues with your textures. And just go back to there again. You can see here we're not doing too bad. Obviously you can spend longer on this to really get it better. Maybe just unwrap it with an extra little split down through the middle there. You get the idea. Now just quickly going into Cinema 4D, I just wanted to show you something in here. You can see this triangle down for the middle here. There's no really need to have that. This is something you want to do before you do UV work, by the way. I'm going to use my polygon pen for this. Just wanted to show you this. Okay, we've got this nasty piece of geometry here. You don't really want to have that there either. Okay, so that's better than what you had there before. It's never nice to have a pole, but it's certainly better than having a triangle right here. So you want to avoid these triangles, and the same thing for here as well. You may want to redirect your edge loops. There's no reason that you can't have a good edge loop right through here at all. So just to wrap things up, let's just quickly look at our UVs inside here. You can see here they're much more cleaner. They're laid out in a way that you're going to get pretty good textures going on them. Again, like I said before, I would go in there and just pull these two halves apart a little bit more. This could have a bit of more of a margin between them. This is something that I can do. I can set automatically to happen, but yeah, it's only a quick unwrap. So I hope that you've learned something from this, and you can see here that there's no need to split this head in half down through the center here, because you are going to get some pretty nasty seams going through there. All the seams that I have been selecting are seams that are quite well hidden in places that you're unlikely to see when your character is either animating or doing general renders from it. So with that said, thanks for watching and bye for now.